Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. Well, as bizarre as this sounds, it looks like the president of the European Commission just said that aliens and people from far away and from other planets, the leaders of other planets, have been worried about the ongoing crisis, including that of Britain exiting the European Union, as well as other things. Now, again, as bizarre and outlandish as this may seem, it is actually and precisely what he said. I'll go ahead and play you this video here, where he says these things during a speech made in Brussels in the wake of Britain voting to leave the European Union. And you'll see below there are accurate subtitles here that were actually provided by the Mars Moon Space TV YouTube channel, which we have worked with in the past, who did a beautiful job of narrating. So check this out and we'll talk more about it in just a second.
Il faut savoir que ceux qui nous observent de loin sont inquiets. J'ai vu et entendu et écouté plusieurs des dirigeants d'autres planètes qui sont très inquiets parce qu'ils s'interrogent sur la voie que l'Union européenne va poursuivre. Et donc, il faut rassurer et les Européens et ceux qui nous observent de plus loin.
All right, so as you just saw, this was a large meeting in Brussels where we had the leaders of all these different countries commenting on Brexit, or Britain's exit from the European Union. And Jean-Claude Juncker got up and began speaking about leaders from other planets. Now, some have said that this is a bad translation, or he didn't know what he was saying. However, I have checked up on this, and he did indeed say these things. And after speaking with multiple French people who listened to what he said, yes, the translation is 100% correct. He clearly mentions about people from far away that are looking at us, as well as mentioning, quote, people from other planets. So it's not a mistake. So that leaves us with A, he slipped up and he mentioned something that he shouldn't have mentioned. Or B, maybe he was drunk. And apparently, Mr. Jean-Claude is known for his drunkenness. So it is possible that maybe he had a couple martinis before this speech and began talking about people from another planet watching us. However, I would think that even if you were drunk, that it would be pretty difficult, and it's a pretty big distinction between the word planet and, let's say, the word country. If he was wanting to say people from another country, I don't know how he would have made that leap from the word country to the word planet or planets. So it's very strange, and I'll let you guys watch it over and you'll see after you do your research that he didn't say people from other planets and that people are watching us from far away. So, very strange. And Jean-Claude here is not the first one to make some very bold claims about aliens or possibly slip up. And in this video today, we're going to show you some of the other quotes from various world leaders about aliens, about UFO activity that may just shock you. So we'll start with a quote from Senator Barry Goldwater, who is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And Mr. Goldwater stated, and I quote, "This thing has gotten so highly classified, it is just impossible to get anything on it. I have no idea who controls the flow of need to know, because frankly, I was told in such an empathetic way that it was none of my business, that I've never tried to make it to be my business since. I have been interested in this subject for a long time, and I do know that whatever the Air Force has on this subject, it's going to remain highly classified." Gordon Cooper, the former NASA astronaut, who is also an aeronautical engineer and test pilot, and one of the 7 original astronauts in Project Mercury, the first manned space program of the United States, stated, and I quote, "In my opinion, I think they were worried that it would panic the public, so they started telling lies about it. And then I think they had to tell another lie to cover their first lie. Now they don't know how to get out of it. Now it's going to be so embarrassing to admit that all these administrations have told so many untruths, it would be embarrassing getting out of it. There are a number of extraterrestrial vehicles out there cruising around." End quote. In a very enigmatic speech by President Ronald Reagan at the UN General Assembly on September 21, 1987 in Geneva, Switzerland, he said, and I quote, "In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside, universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside of this world. And yet I ask, is not an alien force already among us?" Very enigmatic and mysterious words from our former President Ronald Reagan. Here's another quote from former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor Dr. Brian O'Leary. He says, and I quote, "There is abundant evidence that we are being contacted, that civilizations have been visiting us for a very long time, that their appearance is bizarre from any type of traditional materialistic Western point of view, that these visitors use the technologies of consciousness. They use toroids, they use co-rotating magnetic disks for their propulsion systems. That seems to be a common denominator of the UFO phenomena." Dr. Edgar Mitchell, astronaut and lunar module pilot from the Apollo 14 moon landing, said, and I quote, "Yes, there have been crashed craft and bodies recovered. We are not alone in the universe. They have been coming here for a long time." Well, it doesn't get any more plain spoken than that, folks. Mr. Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, the former director of the CIA in 1960, said, quote, "Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about UFOs, but through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense." Now that is a very telling quote that we have talked a lot about on this channel, how they have tried to make a mockery of the UFO phenomena, and we have a former director of the CIA corroborating that. During a screening of the Steven Spielberg movie, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Ronald Reagan is quoted as saying to Mr. Spielberg that, quote, "You know, there aren't 6 people in this room who know how true this really is," referring to the extraterrestrial phenomena. A very revealing quote by Mr. Ben Rich, who was the former senior engineer for Lockheed Martin and the former director of Lockheed's Advanced Aerospace Technology Division Skunk Works, stated this, and I quote, "We already have the means to travel among the stars. But these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine, we already know how to do." Now, talking about close encounters, here is a very mysterious and telling quote from the cosmonaut Viktor Ivanitsev, who was commenting on a UFO sighting that occurred while en route to the Soyut 6 space station in April of 1979. Quote, "It followed us during half of our orbit. We observed it on the light side, and when we entered the shadow side, it disappeared completely. It was an engineered structure, made from some type of metal, approximately 40 meters long with inner hulls, and inside there were openings. Some places had projections like small wings. The object stayed very close to us. We photographed it, and our photos showed it to be 23 to 28 meters away." A former British police officer, Tony Dodd, stated, and I quote, "I have contact with certain diplomats who not only confirm meetings have been taking place between some government officials and an alien race, but have been receiving assistance from this race to advance technology to enable us to meet hostile aliens on a level playing field. My contacts have been present at these meetings and have met these aliens who are benevolent towards us, but will not act with aggression towards any life form unless in self-defense." Lastly, we have a quote from Canada's former Minister of National Defence. From an interview with the Canadian Press in 2010, Paul Hellyer went on to say, and I quote, "The reality is that they, the aliens, have been visiting Earth for decades and probably millennia and have contributed considerably to our knowledge." Now, these are just a handful of the quotes given by men who are in very high positions within the government and military of various countries, past presidents, past CIA directors, astronauts who have walked on the moon. And now we have this new video showing the president of the European Commission possibly slipping up. But even if he didn't, and it was all just a mistake, the truth still stands, and the fact is, we have been visited, and we have had many world leaders who haven't made mistakes and who knew exactly what they were talking about. So again, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Contact me. My email's down below in the video description. And stay tuned because I've got a lot more coming, and we'll see you back soon. Stay safe, guys.